Tilea's Troubles, Part 84. There's More to Come. Lucchini, Summer 2403.
"Not bad, this stuff,"
declared the cooper Arthur Scharf. In one hand he clutched a tankard, in the other a flask he had tapped some of the wine into, so that they could all have a taste. Only the carpenter Gerino had refused, for he was distracted by a bottle of port he had found.
"Not bad at all. If the other barrels are as good, we should be selling this, not drinking it. With the price this would fetch, we could buy 5 times its weight of the kind of wine our boys would be happy with."
"You saying we're cheap?"
asked Gioberto.
"'Cause I'll have you know, my palate is as sharp as any connoisseur's when it comes to drink."
"You long since burnt away any palate you ever had with strong liquors," laughed Arthur. "Did for your hair, too."
"That was practice, long and hard," said Gioberto, "which makes me the perfect drinker."
They were discussing their ill-gotten gains on Lucchini's southern outskirts, where a wide path led from the city down to the Almond Sands. The city had a fine harbour, with wharves aplenty for ships of every size, but it was guarded by 2 stone artillery bastions, so the Sartosan pirates had disembarked from boats on the sands and then marched up to assault from the landward side. Now that Lucchini was taken, most of the vessels had moved to the harbour, but a couple of ships and their boats, those belonging to Captain Garrick, had, for reasons only the captain himself really knew, remained at the sands, which was why Garrick's crew were trudging back and forth from the beach, hauling their considerable share of the loot on the way down. Not all of them, though. Just the yunkers and the foremast men. The sea artists and ship's officers were busy drinking and talking. Arthur was sniffing the wine, then allowing it to roll around in his mouth before swallowing. The others were either humouring him or had failed to notice. He stroked one of the barrels and nodded in appreciation of the cooper's skill.
"Seems to me," he declared, "that we've already taken enough loot to satisfy the captains. We could disperse the fleet right now, and there'd be no one a-complaining. No bitterness, no disappointment, and only praise for the Admiral. And we took it easy."
"Tell that to Oscar first," said Gerino, who had started listening. Some of the port he had been sampling a moment before dribbled down his black beard. The Admiral's first mate, ironically named First, along with a number of Volker's own crew, had died before the Sartosans had even got off the beach, shot by a troop of Lucchini Pistoleri, left behind when the young king had marched off to go to war against the ogres.
"Someone was bound to be hurt," said Arthur. "You can't expect to take a city like this without a little blood spilled. But think, if the king had been here with this army, however meagre it might be, there'd have been a lot more of us than First and a few of his lads queuing at the garden's gate."
Gioberto laughed.
"The queue's long enough, what with all the Luchinans." "Their fault for arguing," said the master gunner, Isacco. "If they'd had the sense to yield immediately, then everything would have turned out just the same, except they'd all be here to watch us." A pistol shot cracked from behind them, and they turned to look over the fence. One of Admiral Volker's crewmen was responsible, from First's watch, and was now stood over the man he had killed. "Another fool arguing, no doubt," said Isacco. "People should know when they're beat, strike amain and submit." Isacco always had a sombre tone, a consequence of his somewhat pessimistic philosophy. It was said he had been a proper scallywag in his youth, but he had changed when a gun he was tending shivered and killed everyone around him, somehow leaving him with not a scratch, other than a missing toe. "Maybe so," said Gioberto, "but wouldn't you complain a little if you were being robbed? There's no need for real nastiness on our part. Just the show of it would suffice. We're taking everything else they have. We could at least leave them with their lives." They watched as the shooter rolled the corpse over with his foot, perhaps to see if he was dead. "Let the fellow grieve," said Gerino. "First was well liked." Gerino took another swig from his bottle, and Arthur drew some more wine from the tapped barrel. "You said we should sell it, not drink it," said Gioberto. Arthur looked up as the red fluid trickled into his flask.
"Can't sell this one, now it's been tapped. There's plenty more." "This is all our share, then?" asked Gioberto. "It is. The captain made good choices when it came to laying claim to portions. We should get some carts to take this lot down to the beach." Gerino pointed down to where a little stream crossed the path. "They didn't wait for a cart?"
Peering down, they could all see two fellows struggling with a barrel just on the other side of the water.
"That's just a little one, and I doubt it's the same vintage. Still, I'll see to it that they're the last to try that. If they drop the barrel, it'll ruin the wine, even if it don't break right open."
"That one'll be for the captain to drink," said Giaberto. "They'll not drop it. Not just now, anyway, what with him so close. He took a barrel for his cabin last time."
"As was proper," said Arthur. "It's in the articles."
They could all see Captain Garrick standing near the two with the barrel, with Tito Alvarez by his side, toting his beast of a gun. Garrick had been supervising the removal of goods, utilising his unsheathed cutlass to point out which loot was to be carried next, ordering the tardy men to hurry up and those being careless to slow down. He was one of the oldest captains in the fleet. Before that, first mate to the Admiral, back when the Admiral was only just elected captain himself. For some years he had been a captain in his own right, never once voted out, and was well respected by his crew as a stickler for fairness, which was why it was only a small barrel he had taken for his own cabin. Bitter experience, the witnessing of so much treachery, cheating and trickeries, had made him very suspicious of the other captains, even the Admiral. Tito was often by his side, with his many-barrelled handgun, just in case a point needed making, in no uncertain terms. It rarely did. Garrick's share included much more than the wine. Several chests of precious metal and gems had been allotted to his crew, from which he and the rest would obtain their proper portion. As per the articles, the captain would receive 4 shares in the prize, the sea artists and officers 2, the sailors 1, and the boy, being only half a man, a half. Some of the chests were huge, so big that a single man could not hope to lift them. Those who were not lugging the loot were guarding its transit. The larger chests had blunderbuss and handgun-armed escorts, while watchful sentinels were dotted all along the route. Lucchini's pistoliers had successfully scarpered after their brief assault, and so could conceivably return. As it was not known where exactly King Ferronzo and his army were, no one could be sure if he was not on his way home right now. Mostly, however, they were keeping an eye out for other Sartosans, driven by greed and possessing of some flimsy excuse about gambling debts or compensation or some other grievance. It was entirely possible that another crew might choose to interrupt the loot's journey to the sands.
"The fleet'll not be splitting up now, Arthur," said Isacco. "This has been just a taster of what's to come. They say the brute Boldergots took everything from the cities and towns inland, which leaves the coast all to us. I say Lucchini was easy, and the next place will be easy too. The noble lords have taken their armies north. There's nothing to stop us."
"There might be plenty to stop us," said Grino. "I've been to Rimas and Portamaggiore and Alcente. They're great powers. They could march an army away and still leave an army at home, if they choose."
"So where is next, then?"
asked Giaberto. Arthur swallowed his biggest gulp yet.
"You might be right about Alcente and Portamaggiore, Gerino," he said. "But Remus has been racked by rebellion and riots, and has sent armies north and west. If the Remans have anything more than Lucchini had to defend their walls, I'll eat my hat."
"And wash it down with wine?" grinned Giaberto. "It's all about surprise," said Isacco. "Remus is too obvious, rich, old and declining. It's where everyone will be expecting us to go. We could take somewhere smaller next. Maybe Volca knows we can take Alcente or Portamaggiore. Maybe we only took Lucchini first because it was the closest."
"Or maybe Lucchini was a trial," suggested Arthur. "Maybe the Admiral wanted us to flash our pans, to make sure we're ready for the real fight."